Okay, so you're tuned in, and we're jumping right into something pretty major that's making waves here in Kinshasa.
Mm-hmm.
The military auditor general has officially asked the Senate to lift Joseph Kabila's immunity.
Yeah, that's the big headline.
And look, this isn't just, another news blip. This feels like it could genuinely shake things up politically. It's definitely something you need to understand.
Absolutely. This wasn't just a rumor. This was a formal request lodged on Wednesday, April 30th.
April 30th, okay.
And we're talking about Joseph Kabila, former president, now senator for life. The request targets the immunity that comes with that specific senatorial position.
And we're seeing this reported pretty widely, right? Not just one source.
No, exactly. Echo, CD, RTNC, Le Congo, Quotidien, they've all covered it.
Right.
When you see multiple outlets confirming the same core story, it signals something significant is definitely underway.
So that's what we want to do today, yeah. Kind of unpack these reports. What does this request really mean?
Exactly. What are the charges? They're serious.
Yep.
And what's the actual legal process here?
So you can get the essentials, without needing a law degree, just the facts as reported.
Precisely.
Okay, let's start with those charges then. Because they are, they're heavy. High treason, war crimes. What's the specific wording?
Yeah, very heavy. The Minister of Justice, Constant Mutamba, has been quoted, and all three sources picked this up, accusing Joseph Kabila of high treason, participation in an insurrectional movement, war crimes, and crimes against humanity.
Wow. Those are, incredibly serious terms in any legal system.
Huge potential consequences, legally speaking.
And something that really jumped out at me from the reporting was this focus. The idea that these accusations relate to his actions as a senator, not necessarily his time as president. Why is that distinction so important?
That's a really critical point. Minister Mutamba apparently referenced specific articles 104, 107, and especially 153 of the Constitution. And Article 120 of the Military Judicial Code, Echo CD, you mentioned that specifically.
Right.
The argument seems to be that the alleged conduct falls under his current role, his senatorial mandate.
Not stuff from his presidency or before.
According to the minister's statements, yes. And legally, that's significant because, as Mutamba pointed out, it means they believe they don't need to go through Congress.
Okay. Because normally for a former president,
typically, yes, there's a different procedure involving Congress for actions taken as president or relating to that office. But here, the argument is these alleged actions are linked to his senatorial role.
And speaking of these alleged actions, they seem geographically focused. The East, North Kivu, keeps coming up in the reports.
Yes, definitely. Both RTNC and Le Congo Quotidien really highlighted that connection. Minister Mutamba explicitly linked these charges to the terrible ongoing security crisis in the East.
Specifically North Kivu.
Particularly North Kivu, yes. RTNC actually quoted the minister directly saying there's, and this is the quote, tangible proof of his direct participation in the massacres and crimes committed daily.
Direct participation. That's a very strong claim.
It is a very direct and serious accusation.
And wasn't there also something about him being allegedly involved in forming a particular group?
Yes, another really serious element. Both RTNC and Le Congo Quotidien mention the accusation that Kabila allegedly co-founded the AFC.
The AFC, remind us.
It's described as a political military movement that's allied with M23.
Ah, okay. M23, the rebel group active in the East.
Exactly. So this alleged alliance, this alleged co-founding, seems to be a cornerstone of the case they're building.
And this isn't just about recent events, is it? I think Le Congo Quotidien mentioned a time frame.
That's right. Their judicial sources pointed towards alleged complicity in systematic exactions against civilians.
Right.
And the time frame they mentioned was between 2012 and 2019.
2012 to 2019. So that suggests, a potentially long period of alleged involvement.
It does. It frames this not as a single incident, but alleged sustained activity over several years, tying into these very grave charges.
Okay, so we have these incredibly serious accusations on the table. How does the system even begin to deal with prosecuting someone like a senator for life? That immunity.
That's the hurdle, right?
That's precisely the hurdle. And that's why this formal request, this requisitoire submitted by the military auditor general to the Senate is the first step.
The requisitoire.
Okay.
As a senator for life, Kabila currently has immunity. It's like a legal shield tied to that role, preventing prosecution under normal circumstances.
So the ball is now firmly in the Senate's court. They hold the key.
Exactly. All the reports confirm this. The Senate now has the job of debating this request and, crucially, voting on whether to lift that immunity.
That's the critical decision point right now.
It's the first major gate they need to pass through for this to proceed legally.
And it's not just a simple majority vote, is it? Le Congo Quotidien mentioned something specific.
Correct. According to their report, if the Senate moves forward with a vote, lifting the immunity requires a qualified majority.
Qualified majority, meaning more than just 50% plus one.
Precisely. It suggests a higher threshold, potentially needing broader consensus within the Senate, which could involve, significant political discussions and maneuvering.
And it sounds like the Minister of Justice was quite emphatic about the legal path going straight to the Senate.
Yes, Echo CD really emphasized Mutamba's point that, in his view, there is no need to go through Congress.
Because the accusations relate to the senatorial role.
Exactly. He cited the specific laws regarding former presidents to argue why this case, focused on alleged senatorial actions, follows a different track directly to the Senate. It underlines the specific legal strategy they're pursuing.
The whole thing feels like it could be a real turning point. A former head of state potentially facing trial. Le Congo au Quotidien's headline even asked, La fin de l'impunité.
The end of impunity, yeah.
That question really captures the weight of this, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It raises the possibility, however distant it might seem right now, of accountability at the highest level. That would be, a profound shift for the DRC.
And the government seems serious. RTNC mentioned a direct order from the Minister of Justice.
Yes, Minister Mutamba apparently gave a formal instruction to both the Military Auditor General and the Prosecutor General to actually initiate these proceedings against Kabila.
So, not just talk, but action being ordered.
It signals a clear governmental push behind this move.
And that might not stop just with Kabila himself. RTNC also mentioned his political party.
That's another layer to this. RTNC reported that the Minister of Interior has reportedly suspended the activities of the PPRD.
Kabila's party.
Joseph Kabila's political party, yes. Suspending its activities suggests this could have much wider political ramifications beyond just the legal case against him.
Of course, in any situation like this, especially here, you have to consider the politics. Le Congo Quotidien brought up questions about judicial independence. How do you see that playing out?
Well, it's almost inevitable, isn't it? In such a high-stakes, politically charged case involving a former president, observers are naturally going to ask, is the judiciary acting fully independently, or are there political motivations driving this?
Right.
Le Congo Quotidien flagged that tension, and it's a valid concern. It's something that people will be watching very, very closely. How independent does this process truly appear?
And adding to the intrigue, Le Congo Quotidien also pointed out, silence from Kabila's side so far.
Yeah, as of the time of those reports, there was apparently no official reaction from Joseph Kabila himself or, his close circle.
Which could mean anything, really. Strategy, assessment.
Exactly. But the lack of an immediate public response is in itself noteworthy in this kind of situation. It just adds another element to watch.
So, looking down the road, what are the next steps we should be watching for? Let's say the Senate does vote to lift his immunity. What happens then?
Okay, so if that qualified majority is reached and immunity is lifted, Le Congo au Quotidien suggests the next step would likely be referral to the High Military Court.
The High Military Court. Why them?
Because that court specifically has jurisdiction over cases involving members of the security forces, but also individuals with special legal status or privileges.
Like a senator facing these kinds of charges.
Exactly. So constitutionally and legally, that seems to be the designated venue if the case progresses past the Senate stage.
Okay, let's try and boil this down then. For you, the listener, trying to make sense of all this, what are the absolute key takeaways from these initial reports?
Right. I think the crucial things are, 1, Joseph Kabila, specifically in his current capacity as Senator for Life, is facing extremely serious accusations, treason, war crimes, crimes against humanity.
Okay, point 1.
2, the formal legal process has begun with a request from the Military Auditor General to the Senate to lift his immunity.
The requisitoire.
Exactly. 3, this request is strategically based on his alleged actions as a senator, which, according to the government, means the Senate, not Congress, is the body to decide.
Got it. The legal pathway.
And 4, the Senate's decision, requiring that qualified majority vote, is the immediate major hurdle. The outcome there is critical.
And the potential impact.
Huge implications for Congolese politics, for justice, for the idea of accountability itself.
Yeah. This definitely feels like a story that's just beginning. We'll obviously keep following it.
For sure.
And it leaves you wondering, doesn't it? Whatever the Senate decides, what are the ripple effects going to be long-term? For the political landscape here, for the rule of law, does this move, this attempt, signal some kind of shift in how accountability is pursued in the DRC, even if it doesn't ultimately succeed in court?
It's a huge question. What does this attempt signify?
Definitely something to keep thinking about as this unfolds. Thanks for joining us to unpack these important developments.